Minasan konnichiwa. Welcome to another edition of Have a Coke and Tea with the Society. My name is Yoshi Domoto. I'm the Executive Director of the Japan American Society of Georgia. I'm so thrilled to have such a very special guest today with extensive experience in Georgia and Japan, and with the Japan American Society as well. So very excited to do our session today. But today I'm enjoying a nice, actually kind of a cold tea, a little warmer today here in the Georgia heat, now that it's summer. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Dei Lancaster. Dei-san, konnichiwa. And what are you enjoying today?
I'm enjoying my usual cup of morning coffee. I'm a coffee drinker.
Nice. I wonder if it's Georgia coffee or maybe just coffee that we just get in Georgia, right? But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. But tell us a little bit about yourself and the type of work you do.
Well, currently I'm a commercial real estate broker. That's probably the longest stint I've had of various jobs since getting out of college. My first job was delivering papers in Decatur, Georgia, as a freshman in high school. But as of about 30 years ago, I've been in the commercial real estate realm and focusing on helping primarily Japanese corporations with their warehouse and office leasing needs, sometimes helping them sell buildings, buy property, but primarily when they lease office or warehouse spaces, where I get involved as their broker.
Well,
yep.
Well, you I guess delivered papers for your first job. My first job was making pizzas and delivering pizzas. So kind of a delivery history.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I know with your current role with commercial real estate, I know you get a very unique insight into kind of how the market is and kind of the business flow, certainly with Japanese companies. But I know you have a very long and extensive and close relationship to Japan, but you look American, but almost honorary Japanese, right? So tell us about kind of your connection to Japan, how you got first introduced to the great country of Japan.
Well, I was born there. I was born in Kobe. My folks were missionaries, and they were in Kobe in language study. As missionaries, they spent the first couple of years learning Japanese, and then were assigned to the field. And I think I was conceived and born during that time. And so shortly after I was born, we moved to Tokushima on the island of Shikoku. And so my first early years were in Shikoku. My first trip to the U.S. was when I was 3 years old. That's my earliest memory, being on the ship, the Hikawamaru. And some may be aware that the Hikawamaru is now docked in Yokohama. You can actually go see it. It was I think the Emperor Hirohito actually took a voyage on the Hikawamaru. It's got a long history. But that was my first memory, was going from Yokohama to San Francisco at the age of 3. And then a year later, we returned again on the Hikawamaru back to Japan, to Tokushima. So that was the sort of cycle of my growing up. We would spend 4 or 5 years in Japan, and then a year of furlough in the United States. My first 2 furloughs were in Richmond, Virginia. My third furlough was here in Atlanta, actually Decatur. And then my parents moved here when they left the mission field. My dad got a job at the church headquarters, which at the time was in downtown Atlanta on Ponce de Leon, not far from where that Krispy Kreme that burned up recently. It was not too far from there that he had his offices. So I've had an association with Atlanta since that time, which was back in the late 60s. I went to college in the Midwest, but when I came home for vacation, it was always back to Atlanta. And I just found that Atlanta embodied the features that I was looking for in a place to live. I enjoyed the Southern hospitality. I liked the climate. I enjoyed the food, the culture. My parents were Southerners, so I grew up in the Southern culture. We would, again, our furloughs were all in the South, either in Virginia or here in Georgia. So I found that the closest environment culturally to Japan is the American South. And so I felt comfortable. And that's why I've always enjoyed living here.
Very nice. Yeah, I completely agree. I know it's a little different, but the Japanese omotenashi and the Southern hospitality, there's some connection there. And yeah, I think Southerners, like the Japanese, we have our own kind of unique culture here in the U.S. and so I completely agree with kind of the connection there. And perhaps with that kind of that connection, Japan is Georgia's #1 foreign investor with the number of Japanese companies and also the financial investment that Japanese companies have had here in the state. But I think you've had a very unique insight into kind of the history of Japanese investment here, and you were a big part of that, right? So can you talk a little bit about kind of how you've seen kind of Japan and Georgia relations kind of grow over the years?
Yeah, I was blessed to be involved at the early stages. When I got out of college, it was just, I think there may have been 10 Japanese companies in Georgia at the time. And I sent out applications to every one of them for a job and heard back from zero, not a one. And wound up working my college, Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana, was about 5 hours from Chicago. So I got a lead through the consulate in the Japanese consulate in Chicago that they were looking for an interpreter in a manufacturing facility that was owned by Matsushita, Quasar Electronics. And that's where I began my career, was as an interpreter on the manufacturing floor for a Japanese manufacturing advisor. But was always looking to get back to Georgia and was able to find a job with a small firm down in Peachtree City. And worked there for about a year. But when I encountered the representative for the department at the time, was called Department of Industry and Trade. It's now as you know, the Department of Economic Development. But this guy came in, he had a flight jacket on, he had his aviator sunglasses on, he was stepping out of a helicopter after circling around the facility, taking videos of existing Japanese companies to do a marketing video to recruit more Japanese companies. And I was working in this smelly manufacturing plant. And I thought, well, this is the kind of job I'd like to have, flying around in a helicopter. So it turns out that he was assigned to the Tokyo office for the state, maybe a few months after that encounter. And so I applied and was hired by the department and was looking to stay in Atlanta, but this predecessor left within about a year of that, and they asked me to go over and take over the Tokyo office. So after about a year and a half in the Atlanta office, I was stationed in Tokyo, and this was back in the heyday, the mid to late 80s of Japanese investment. So I was involved in a large number of recruitment efforts. The first one I was involved in, though, was a disappointment. It was the attempt to try and recruit Nissan. They were looking. So my first real big recruitment project after joining, within just a few weeks, it was like a dinner at the governor's mansion with executives of Nissan. The governor at the time was Governor Busby, and he was hosting. And a little side note, I can tell you that Mary Beth Busby, the First Lady's um, roasted pecans were the best I've ever had. I've always wanted to. She should have made a side job with that recipe. But in any event, we tried our best to convince Nissan to come to Georgia, and we were one of two finalists. But as you know, they wound up going to Tennessee. But there are a large number of projects like that where, fortunately, we did come out on top. One of the most memorable was the Yamaha motor recruitment effort, where they wound up in Noonan. I was very heavily involved in that whole effort, and it's rewarding to have been involved in a project that still is growing and expanding to this day. What's interesting, when you've lived this long, you see things ebb and flow and rise and disappear. And when I started out, videotape manufacturing was the big thing. And TDK, Hitachi Maxell, there were a number of companies that came and put videotape plants, and they have since been rendered obsolete, aren't here anymore. They went through the CDs were another one. I was involved with Nippon Columbia. They put a CD plant in Madison. CDs just aren't what they used to be, and with all the streaming and digital media that's available. But it is nice to know that a number of the projects I was involved in have thrived and are doing well to this day.
Well, you certainly paved the way for all the Japanese investment coming into Georgia. So we appreciate all your efforts and certainly making it possible for organizations like the Japan American Society to be established, right? So kind of speaking of that, can you kind of maybe also talk about the beginning of the society, or kind of the early years of the society? And you've had kind of a unique perspective, also being a chair of the society too, which you and I got to work out, pretty close together. So and
Yes.
you've been very connected and active in the Shokokai and the Japanese Chamber of Commerce. So you have been sort of Mr. Japan here in Georgia for quite some time. So maybe tell us about kind of your work in the kind of nonprofit and kind of community organizations as well.
Sure. The connection to the Japan American Society is very personal, because the original founder, George Waldner, professor at the time at Oglethorpe, your alma mater, was a scholar of, I think, Japanese politics. And I believe it was Oglethorpe that was the host of this annual 6-week study abroad program for young Japanese up-and-coming executives. And I got to know Dr. Waldner through that connection, because I was asked to make a welcome remarks to the group whenever they came, as a representative of the state, saying, welcome to Georgia. It's a great place to invest, in hopes of planting these seeds that later on, when these young executives were higher up in the organizations and in a position to make investment decisions, would remember, what a great place Georgia was, and think of us, and hopefully put their overseas manufacturing investment here. But as a result of that connection with Oglethorpe and Dr. Waldner, I got to know him well, and was aware of the Japan American Society organization. We didn't have one here in Georgia at the time. I wasn't involved in the creation of the society. I believe I was in Tokyo when everything really started to take off. The original seeds were probably created by Dr. Waldner back around 1980, 81. I was in Japan in 82, and I don't know, was it 82 when the society was actually formed?
1980, actually.
Oh, it was 88. Okay. 1980. Well, in that case, I was here, and it was Dr. Waldner, though, who introduced me to my wife, and Yoko, and she was one of the early volunteers with the society. So our marriage to sort of track the life of the society. So that's been fun to be part of this growth and activity and all the events that have taken place over these many years. I've also been involved with the Shokokai, Japanese Chamber of Commerce, since the early years. I was involved sort of in an honorary position when I was with the state and would attend meetings, and mostly as sort of a non-voting representative, if you will. But once I got into commercial real estate, I joined the Shokokai as a corporate member, of course, as well as the Japan American Society. So I've been involved in both organizations, and it's been interesting to see the dynamic between the two organizations and how they both function and support the Japanese Georgia community over these years. But it was an honor to be selected to chair the society, although it was a difficult time period during my tenure, as you well remember. But I look back fondly on that, and of course intend to continue staying involved as much as possible with the society going forward.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we had some challenges during your chairmanship, but also we have a lot to be proud of as well too. Starting up the study abroad program with the Old Reading University, and I think it was right before your chairmanship too. But you were integral in bringing Ryuji Yamada, the Japanese professional golfer, and we had, I think, the largest golf tournament, in our history. So there's a lot that we can be proud of as well too. And other than the society and the Shokokai too, you have, I think, not maybe too many people know, but you have a very, I think, fun and interesting experience with the Olympics here in Atlanta. Right?
Yes.
We celebrate the 25-year anniversary of the Atlanta Olympics, and the Tokyo Olympics will be happening in a matter of weeks. But maybe tell us about some of your fondest memories of 25 years ago when Atlanta was able to host the Olympics.
Well, the highlights were the opening and closing ceremonies, where I actually got to be on the field with the athletes. The opening ceremonies, I was what was called an envoy, and each delegation, each team, country had assigned an envoy team from ACOG, the Atlanta Committee for Olympic Games, the host organization. And depending on the size of the delegation, the envoy team size varied. In the case of Japan, there were like 400 athletes and staff who would be staying at the Olympic Village. And our primary role as the envoy team was to interface on behalf of ACOG with these delegations as they came into the village and as they went from venue to venue, primarily working with the staff, not the athletes. I spent 2 years in advance of the Olympics studying up on the Olympic Games, as well as learning the organization of how the Olympics would be run in Atlanta, going and previewing all of the different venues. I had 6 associates who would help me during that time, as well as 6 drivers who were dedicated to the Japanese team. We were the Japanese delegation at 400 was probably second, third, or fourth largest. It was in the top 5 largest delegations to the to the Centennial Olympic Games. So it was a larger envoy team than perhaps some of the other countries, but it was again just a great honor because I was able to join just the envoys. Unfortunately, the associates were not able to be part of that opening ceremony on the field, but I've got a commemorative photograph that a professional photographer took and framed and was selling in one of the stores in Atlanta, that shows, it's a picture of the American team entering the stadium, the Olympic Stadium. And all of the other teams have already assembled on the field. And the Japanese team is the closest to the camera. So I can actually pinpoint myself in that photograph. Even though I'm facing away from the camera, my uniform is different from the rest of the Japanese team, so I kind of stand out. But that's one of my favorite possessions, is this photograph of the opening ceremonies of the Centennial Games. So I was on the field there to watch Muhammad Ali light the torch, or the cauldron, and it was very special. Again, I got to escort Arimuni-san. She came in third in the women's marathon, but I got to escort her to the bus to the closing ceremonies. Got a picture with her, but that was all sort of the highlights. The flip side was sort of seeing the underbelly of the Olympics and how they're run and what goes into it. And the other sort of downside was they're one-off as far as the hosting city is concerned. It's like one and done. You don't have any ongoing connection with the Olympics once they're over with. I had hoped that there would be a connection to the Japanese Olympic Committee that would endure, and that I'd have access, or at least the ability to associate with this group of people ongoing. But once the Olympics ended, there was no further connection. And the primary reason for that, I believe, is the fact that the Olympic Committee, Japanese Olympic Committee itself, is not really the staff is all on loan from different sports federations. So the sports federations are the ones that really, if I'd had a particular connection to judo or wrestling or running, or track and field, if I'd had a sports connection, then I might have been able to keep contact with them. But I really didn't have that connection. So once the Olympics were over with, it was over. It was done, which was disappointing to me. It kind of left a hole. But I will always treasure those memories of going and seeing I had access. One of the great things was I had access to all the venues unimpeded. I had the highest level security clearance of anybody in the games. So I had the pass that I could walk through any door into any venue at any time and watch practice. I was able to see Johnson break the 100-meter record at the VIP lounge. Jack Nicholson was there. It was pretty special. Yeah, it was. So those kinds of experiences I couldn't have had otherwise. And so yeah, I'll always treasure that. Definitely.
Well, very nice. Well, for everyone tuning in, we'll have a challenge, I guess, right? That famous photo of the opening ceremonies where I guess the U.S. athletes are coming in. If you can spot Daesan in the picture, maybe like that, right? So
right.
I've seen that picture. So yeah, I think you have a kind of a greenish, maybe a Japanese uniform or something like that, right? So I think
no, it was the ACOG uniform, which was
okay. It wasn't a Japanese uniform then. Okay.
Yeah, the Japanese all had red sports coats.
Okay.
And I had a short sleeve dress shirt. It had the ACOG, it had the Olympic logo on it. It was this kind of a white with stripes shirt in khaki, and an Olympic hat that was different. It's definitely different than everyone else surrounding me. So that's why it's easy to sort of pick out. So there's your clue.
All right. Well, I know this year's Olympics will be certainly very different, but hopefully we can all cheer Team Japan and Team US on from afar safely, right? But yeah, so Daesan, before, I mean, a couple more questions before we end our session. But so tell us maybe a little bit about your hobbies. What do you like to do when you're kind of away from work and away from kind of being active with the society or the Shokokai?
I enjoy playing golf. That's my principal hobby. I just love playing golf to the extent that my body will let me. But I've been involved with the Shokokai golf tournament, of course, with the Japan American Society golf tournament, and it's always a pleasure to get out and associate with everybody on the golf course. And this background photo that I've got behind me is actually a golf course in I think it's Gotemba, not far. My wife is from Fuji City, which is just a few miles from where this picture was taken. And every year, up until the pandemic at least, we would usually go back around Thanksgiving. And I would always enjoy getting out on a golf course in the neighborhood, which always featured, shots of Mount Fuji. Unfortunately, of course, this past year, I wasn't able to get back. So all my Mount Fuji golf course photographs are out of date. I need to get back and update those photographs. But definitely that's my passion.
I was about to make a comment on your background photo, but yeah, even though Georgia has Augusta and East Lake, and I guess we have Stone Mountain too, but the golf course in Gotemba, or right where you have in the background, that's hard to beat with Mount Fuji in the background, right? So
Yeah, and it's we go back at the fall in the fall where you had the fall colors. It's just a spectacular venue to enjoy the game, definitely.
so hopefully you can make it back out there sometime soon and milk your, I guess, annual pilgrimage to play golf right by Mount Fuji. But
Yes.
to take us out, can you talk about maybe future goals, aspirations, whether it's personal, professional, or just kind of messages of hope for all of our kind of viewers tuning in?
Well, I am at a point in my career where I'm looking at retirement. So that's the focus. Right now, we're Yoko has already retired, and so she's been enjoying her days off. The pandemic was actually kind of a preview of what that would feel like, being at home and together, sort of ensconced. But we're looking forward to getting out and traveling, doing more of that, certainly. Our travel has been in the past mostly Japan based, but we're hoping to, our intention is to get out to Europe and Asia, other parts of Asia, and see more of the world going forward. And that's what we're looking forward to. We're intending to be spending as much time in the future in Japan as we are here in Atlanta. And our next focus will be in trying to find the best home base in Japan for our future. So we'll be doing research, and that will be our focus going forward. But we're definitely looking forward to this pandemic getting behind us. It's certainly persistent. It's not letting go like all of us want it to, but hopefully people will step up and get vaccinated like they should, and we can get those numbers down and remove the travel restrictions that are making international travel so difficult right now. But I'm encouraged that we are still seeing Japanese companies coming to Georgia. The relationship I have with the Department of Economic Development, I've been fortunate to maintain, and there are firms who are coming in brand new from Japan. So I expect that the Japanese presence here in Georgia will continue to grow. And with the state ranking as one of the top investment locations in the United States. I certainly think that we'll see, we'll continue to be the beneficiary of investment going forward. So that means new members for the society, members for the Japanese Chamber, and just the strengthened relations between Japan and Georgia. I think it's all, the trend is looking very good going forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and for all of your support over the years, not just with the society, but both helping promote U.S.-Japan relations in Japan and the U.S., particularly here in Georgia. And a big congratulations to you and Yumiko Nakazono, as well as have recognized you as the most recent recipients of the Mike Mansfield Awards, which is the top awards and recognition of someone promoting U.S.-Japan relations in Georgia. So we certainly have to celebrate and have an in-person ceremony very soon. Get everyone together. So thank you again for all your work and efforts to put together Japanese liaison. We'll see you in person next time.
Thank you, Yoshi-san. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take